Hey everybody, this is Grateful Futures here. Really excited about this video. This is the second video in our advanced volume techniques series, and this one is really important. Last time we went over how to use volume delta and volume profile to kind of understand if buyers or sellers were, diverging from the actual price action. And I just want to tell you, delta is great. You can get a lot of information from volume delta, but at the same time, is it a holy grail of indicators where you could just base, all your decisions off of price action and delta? No, not by any means. In fact, delta can sometimes lead you to believe the wrong idea. So, if there was a holy grail of indicators, what would it be? In my opinion, I don't think there is any kind of holy grail of indicators that's just the end all be all. But the closest thing that you would have to a holy grail of indicators would be using volume profile and correctly analyzing different kinds of volume profile, being long-term anchored volume profile and fixed range volume profile throughout the trading day. Now, this is by far the most powerful tool in my arsenal. I don't understand how traders cannot use this and accurately kind of play out the story, the tape of what's happening, during the trading day. So, without further ado, let's do a little bit of review. Again, if you're brand new to this, don't forget to watch my introductions and basic videos of volume analysis on my YouTube channel. And let's just go ahead and review the basic concepts of volume profile, and keeping in mind what you're seeing on the screen now, the left-hand side is a long-term anchored volume profile of all the volume that has been since the past, since the beginning of the year. I have it anchored. And then what you're seeing right here is a fixed range volume profile that's just taking, this specific range of volume values respective to the y-axis, the price. Now, just as a reminder, when you do have a volume profile, it should look something like this, where you have specific peaks throughout the y-axis. And just as a reminder, the bottoms of the peaks are going to be your bullish reversal areas. You'll have bullish support in these areas, and you're going to have bearish support in these areas. Now, there's also the low volume nodes, for example, right here, that those are going to act as your boundaries between this peak and the next peak. So these act as, traditional support and resistance. When you get above the bulk of the peak and start to head into the low volume node, sellers will start to think that, it's a good deal because they want to push back down to the middle. Same thing for the bottom. When you get close to the bottom, buyers want to push up to get back close to the middle, because the middle, this white line here, which is the highest volume area of your entire profile, that's what's considered the point of control, or POC. So if you hear POC, I'm referring to the highest volume portion. If I say low volume node, I'm referring to one of these areas. So just as a reminder, how do these form? What does it look like? What can we expect to see when we're taking a volume profile? Let's say price has, come from the bottom here, where in low volume areas, this is where price is typically moving a lot faster because there's less interest from either buyers or sellers. So let's say, this is primarily buying. Maybe it went like this. Price came up, shot up really fast. And then once it gets into this area, it starts to consolidate because now sellers start to think, this is probably a little bit high in price, so let's start selling. And you get this kind of choppiness. So price will consolidate, creating the high volume node. So this is where buyers and sellers are most happy. Now, what happens when buyers or sellers are finished in this zone? Let's just say sellers have finished selling in this zone and buyers are still strong. What happens is price will break out or up to the top of that high volume area. Now, what usually happens is at a low volume node, you do typically get some resistance if it's towards the top of the peak, especially if the peak is larger. So what you'll see usually is sellers bringing the price back down to test this high volume zone. Now, if sellers are truly done in this region, what will happen is that sellers will stop selling, buyers will pick back up, and you'll get a break up to the next area where sellers, believe that they can, sell the price down, and that's a high enough price for them to take profits at. So how does this manifest, right? Usually you can see that there is this major consolidation zone. When sellers are truly done, it will break up out of it usually to a lower volume area within that peak. And then sellers will bring back down to just test this area. And if they're truly done, price should bounce off of it. So this is one of the most powerful setups that you can have as a trade day trader, a scalper, even a long-term swing trader. This is valid on any time frame. So this is what's called a point of control retest. So if you see this, this is, really, really, really good. This confirms bullish action. And if it's like this, it can also be the opposite way where it's confirming bearish action. So just going to do this quickly, breaks down, comes back up, tests it, and then moves lower. So that's your point of control retest. There is a few other things that can happen. So for example, we can have a point of control rejection. So we have price come up, it starts to consolidate, and instead of sellers being done now, buyers are done. So it will break down, bounce up, test this zone to see if there's still buyers. And if there's no more buyers, it will continue down to another zone where it can find more liquidity between buyers and sellers. So that's a point of control rejection. Now there is a few other things that can happen. And I can illustrate it with this as well. Let's say we do have a consolidation zone, and out of it, buyers push up, and then they just start to consolidate up here. So this isn't exactly a point of control retest because it never comes back to that point of control. But what I call this is a low volume node retest. So it will create this peak through this consolidation, break up, and then it will just start to consolidate up here. And look at where the support would be. The support is right about here, right? So you go over and see where that is. That's around the low volume node. So the previous bearish area became the new support area. So that's, typically seen in like bull flags, double bull flags. It doesn't always have to naturally come back and retest the zone, but it's best if it does because it validates this level. When you have a low volume node retest like this, it doesn't leave this zone confirmed as there's no more sellers. So there's a chance that it could later in the day or after this break down to retest it and come back up. Usually zones are retested, and when they are retested and confirmed, that is a more powerful confirmation of the move. Now, that's pretty much all I want you to know right now about these. The other thing is we just got to think, is volume supporting price to stay in its current volume peak, or is it supporting to move to another volume zone? And the volume zone, is it moving? If it's moving to, is that going to be healthier for price to consolidate at versus returning back to the previous zone? So, what it could be is like, is price supporting to stay in the zone right now? Yes, right? It's just consolidating in this high volume area. It's having bearish resistance around the low volume node at the top, and it's having bullish resistance towards the bottom. Now, if price were to come here and then bounce up, is price supporting to stay in this zone or leave it? It's starting to support leaving it, right? Because it's making higher lows on the point of control. And where is it heading? it could possibly break through this long-term low volume node, which is also the fixed range low volume node. Now, when price is through it, and let's say it is consolidating here, is price supporting staying in this newly formed volume node, or is it supporting going back to the old one? Well, since it's creating new volume up here, supporting at its bullish support zone, which is the bottom of this small peak now, then now price is or volume is supporting the price to stay in this new volume zone until it eventually does break down through this low volume node area right here. So just some things to think about when we go through and talk about real price action, but that is the basis of what I want you guys to understand today. Let's bring some charts into it and see if we can see what's happening here on the tape. So if we look at, I believe this is the 26th a few days ago, I'm going to take you through this and just kind of show you what I need to take a trade and what you guys should be looking for if you go and do this live, or maybe do some trading view replays, just to kind of increase your volume analysis skills there. So there's three things that I need to actually take a trade. One is I need some kind of short-term imbalance, right? So imbalance is higher highs, lower highs, just is buyers or sellers winning at any given point. From here to here, you can tell there's a buy imbalance. And from here to here, you can tell there's a sell imbalance, right? We're making lower highs, lower lows. Those are things that you guys should be watching for, typical market structure. And then we can also see, just to do another part here, we can start to see a buy imbalance forming, and it goes through here. Okay, so that's one thing I need to see to be able to take a trade. The other thing that I need to see is some kind of short-term volume profile confluence. So short-term volume profile confluence, right? Is it having one of those things we just talked about? Has a point of control been retested and confirmed? Is a low volume node being tested and confirmed? Those are things that I'm looking at constantly, and we'll do some here in a second. What's the third thing that I need to actually take a trade? Is in a correct long-term volume profile position. Okay, now this is the long-term volume profile. And remember, we really only want to go long at the bottom of high volume nodes. So let's say price is here, and it supports this low volume node. I'm okay to take a trade long right here, but I wouldn't want to take a short trade right here because I'm coming into a bullish support area of this specific peak. And I wouldn't want to take a short position going into here. Or sorry, I wouldn't want to take a long position going into here because it has the highest chance of reversing there. I'd rather wait for it to reject and take the short position on the rejection. And for longs, I would want to wait for it to break through and test that long-term volume node to go long. And then the fourth thing is to have a reasonable profit target above and reasonable stop loss below. All right, so let's see if we can use this volume profile to kind of understand what kind of trades we should take and what trades we shouldn't take. So let's go ahead and just, draw out a volume profile. The beginning of the day, it was pumping up, pumping down, pumping up, pumping down. So there's no kind of imbalance here. Starts to be some kind of sell imbalance here, but prices pulled immediately back up. And this day, the reason I was kind of looking towards the long side was this whole long-term volume peak. This is, you can have a larger peak like this, and you can also have smaller peaks within it that comprise it. But this entire long-term volume peak, um, we're at the bottom of it, right? So that should be bullish support in the long term for this price, unless it breaks through it and retests it. So at this point, I'm starting to see, still kind of balanced, but now it's consolidating above this range. So let's just take a volume profile just so we can see, see where we're at right now in terms of the point of control. And I don't know why it's taking so long. Maybe let's try to do that again. Like right here. And while we're waiting for this, I want to show you guys where you can take these fixed range volume profiles throughout the day. So you want to take them on balanced areas. You want to take them on bullish and bearish. Could say this runs. So, divide them by pivot points. If there's higher highs, higher lows, then as soon as it starts making a lower high, lower low, that range of higher highs and higher lows, you can take them on those. And you should also have one for the entire session. And I usually use an anchored volume profile at the beginning of the day for that. Now look, we can see, right? Price is kind of just fluctuating between the point of control so far for the session. And this is the first time that we get a higher low above it. Now, I'm not taking, a position here yet. I want to see one of those things, a point of control retested and held, or a low volume zone retested and held in a position that makes sense for the long-term volume profile. So, but because I see new higher lows forming, what we can do is we can take another volume profile from the bottom and bring it to, let's say, the top right here. And if I'm at this point in the day, I'll have, probably drawn these out just so I can see where the zones are. I don't know why it is taking so long today to pull up the volume profiles. Okay, perfect. So there is overall imbalance, but for this particular peak right now, we're in a balanced state around the point of control. Price does settle on it and pop up to this low volume node where it's rejected back down to this long-term low volume node. And there's support there. It's also a low volume node of this particular profile. It still wasn't really enough for me to take a trade, but if I pull it out towards here where we can see it test towards the upper side again. And let's also bring VWAP into this too, because VWAP is also pretty important. Our volume weighted average price. Perfect. Okay, so we can see that price comes up towards that, comes back down. It does support near the point of control of this zone and pushes up towards the next low volume node and actually breaks through it. Now, you don't have to take a trade here. Sometimes I like to wait till it's perfectly retested, but that's kind of an example where you see a balanced area and then we get a support above validating this zone as being done with sellers. Now, price does push up and it starts to fail. So you can also, yeah, and the other thing too is if you pull up VWAP, VWAP was also right at this long-term low volume node. So that, may have been a good trade to take when you see the retest and hold for a scalp. But I do want to show you guys something pretty important too, is that you can also break up these uptrends. So you can see here how there was consolidation, breaks up, down, and then starts to continue up. You could take the volume profile of, let's say, just this part or just this part. And I think it's pretty important. So let's go ahead and take that volume profile there. Hopefully my computer gets a little faster with these volume profiles. It's got a lot going on. Maybe I should clean it up. Okay, and now what can we see? So this particular spectrum here, this peak data, price is now consolidating on this, which is also a low volume node in a bullish area, but I want to see price break up and retest this point of control to continue further. What happens? Price actually breaks down into the previous high volume peak. It tries to get back into this consolidation zone and fails at the point of control. So we have our first example of a point of control fail. So you can see it fails there, comes back down, tries to test it again, but it is now stuck within this peak. So now we have to consider price as acting within this peak here, meaning that this area is going to be bearish and this area is going to be bullish until we see something else. And now we have a new, pivot. So we're going to take our new volume profile from here. Let's say we see the run down to here. And that could even be a scalp, right? If you see it, it's tapping off that point of control, tapping off it again. That's kind of confirming that it's bearish. It's not going to, break up through this right now. And we are in a long-term area that is bearish for this peak. So you could scalp that down to VWAP. That's kind of not large enough of a trade for me. But and also this long-term node or high volume node, it's the bottom of it, we're still kind of in the bullish area. So I wouldn't love to take that trade. But if you're like a high volume scalper, then that's a possibility to scalp down to VWAP, but not really my cup of tea. Now, if we take this volume profile, and maybe I should just start pulling the volume profiles out if it's going to take this long. Perfect. So we see that it's failed at this point of control from the uptrend. Now, if the downtrend is intact, it should still support this point of control. It shouldn't want to consolidate on this point of control to try to move up again. And that's exactly what happens. Price breaks up, tries to get into this volume peak. It's denied. It tries to come up again. Now this time it's rejected at this low volume node. It can't can't get back into this peak right here. So it's failing, but is consolidating on VWAP. Price pushes up and is rejected at this long-term low volume node, but we are still making lower highs and lower lows. So let's go ahead and extend this to see what's actually going on here. Is there any kind of new point of control that we can look for rejection at or to get above for continued bullish action? So here we see that price pushes down, and if this downtrend is valid, it should retest that point of control and fail. And that's exactly what it does. This time it does even come back down below VWAP, but long term, there is a low volume node here. And since we're in this peak, this area acts as bullish support. So you can see that it taps off of that. Let's even pull this forward to see if there's anything else that we're missing here. Actually, it'd be kind of like right here. And while we're at it, well, it's okay. I'll just pull that one, just pull this one forward to give like a session profile. Okay, look at that. So this was our previous point of control. Now pulling it down here, there's enough volume in this area that creates this as our point of control. And look at that, supported at the low volume node long term, comes right back up to the point of control, denied, back down to our support of the low volume node. Tries to come back up, gets a little bit higher. So it's almost getting back into this peak right here to try to consolidate again. But price fails back down to our low volume node, and now we see we've made a higher low, right? So let's go ahead and pull our volume profile all the way here. And that would be our, fully, you know, all-encompassing volume profile just for this swing down. This is the one for our swing up. Let's pull that right here. And all right, so now price comes back up, starts to again run into resistance here, comes back down, does form that higher low. So let's go ahead and draw a new fixed range volume profile from the start of our uptrend to, let's say we're at this point in price action. Usually it is not this slow. Okay, perfect. And waiting for our profile to pop up here. And you can kind of see, usually it's around those consolidations, right? So if you had to guess, where would the point of control be? Probably about right here. So when it pops up, you can see that when price pushes up, tries to retake this point of control, breaks through it, comes back down, and will be supportive on this new uptrend point of control. See how it pops up? It's now consolidating above the point of control. This point of control is now acting as support. It comes back up, retests it, and it confirms it as support. So this is a trade that I took based on this point of control retest. It's coming right off of the bullish area with a higher low from the long-term bullish zone. So you could take this trade long right here at the confirmation of this point of control as your support. You can put your stop loss right below the low volume node, which is also right below VWAP. And your first target could be, right here for a one-to-one scalp, or you could make it this long-term point of control. And then eventually, if you do still have a runner left, you could put it to right below this low volume node here. And this trade played out really, really well, right? Because you have a structure, you have your newly forming buy side imbalance, right? We went from sell imbalance to buy imbalance. Very early on in the buy imbalance, you have your point of control retest and support. You have your bullish reversal area of this larger peak, right? So anywhere in here is going to be your bullish area of this larger peak. And price now just has to prove that it can get through this low volume node, which has acted as resistance throughout the day. So it's confirmed this level as a support. Let's go ahead and continue, maybe draw even another volume profile from this, oops, sorry, from this low, now let's say to this high, and see what we're looking at. And by this time, maybe I've clipped a little bit of profits, knowing that this could run into a little bit of resistance at this long-term low volume node. And it's kind of already shown that throughout the day. But this is one of the most powerful moves in the stock market. Your bearish imbalance turned into bullish imbalance, kind of like a U-shaped curve, so to speak. Whereas we just had a regular buy imbalance here, but this right here is, I guess, what they would refer to as like a cup and handle. So that gave me, a little bit of additional confirmation. And so what's happening here is it doesn't come back to support this point of control, right? It doesn't come back to support the long-term point of control. What this is going to be your low volume node support. So if you look, let's just go ahead and pull this one forward. So what is happening here is it doesn't actually come back to validate this point of control or the one that it used for support here. But when it pops up, you'll see that this consolidation right here is consolidating on um, the low volume node that was formed on this uptrend. So right, this peak will be like this. This peak should be like this, which means that's your low volume node, and it's supporting that low volume node. The longer it stays in that zone, it's forming a peak greater and greater and greater. And the longer it stays in that zone, the higher chance it has to get above it and retest its new low volume node or perhaps the point of control for this newly formed volume peak. So you can see that right there, almost perfectly to what I drew. Um, you're always just looking for supports at the low volume nodes, preferably the point of control like this one to validate that zone and for it to move up. Now, this happens all day, every day, all the time. Um, let's just even pull maybe this over and see where the high volume node is for the entire session, where the point of control is. And I do want to show you another one over here, just so we can kind of show you, prove this is not just this case. It is literally happening all the time. It goes from a buy imbalance to kind of a balanced action going between this low volume node and this low volume node, right? We've pushed up from this peak to this peak. Let's get these out of here so you guys can see a little clearer. So we were previously in this long-term volume peak. Now price has supported a move to this long-term volume peak. So this is your new bullish area and this is your new bearish area until we get proof it's going to break into another zone. So you can see just that. It's supported at the bottom, resisted at the top, supported at the bottom, resisted on the top. It does break down a little bit, but it comes right back up, supported, goes back to the top, and then it does break down here. One other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is when can you confirm a reversal? So a reversal can be confirmed. Let's say you have, a range of peaks like this, like this, like this, and price has come up. It's broken up, gone to this peak, broken up, gone to this peak. So, and this is our point of control. It could reject the point of control and come back down to this peak, but we don't want to, and say there's like, you can imagine a point of control of this peak too. You don't want to assume a reversal is legitimate until it's broken down to not the peak that it's forming, but the previous one, and broken its point of control. So once it does that, I can take this reversal seriously. Otherwise, it could just come back up to the peak that it was forming before. All right, so you can even see that it even tries to reject the point of control, but supported at the low volume node, rejected at the higher low volume node, breaks down, tries to take this consolidation point of control. It can't. And, you can do this all day, right? Draw new fixed range volume profiles on each little part of the downtrend and uptrend. See if you can see areas where it's rejecting, to where you can actually take these reversals seriously, or you can find your best entry for a continuation is generally at a support of those high volume nodes, the point of controls. So that's what I wanted to show you. Pretty much going forward, I'm going to be making these videos daily. And there is one that I wanted to show you. I did want to show you this one before we go, because look at how perfect this is. It's forming higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And if we take the fixed range volume profile of, let's say, just this uptrend from here to here, and then another one from here to here, you could, separate those sections to see, on the next, after the first consolidation, on the next leg up, where's the best place for it to consolidate? And one word before we go. Okay, so see how price came pretty much perfectly down. It broke through, perfectly came down to this point of control from this chunk of the uptrend. Then when it pushed up, supported there, pushed up, and then came back down and supported this point of control of this chunk of the uptrend. And one thing I want to say to you guys, so when a point of control lies on a low volume node, that is additional confluence for a support or resistance. So this was another wonderful trade that you could have taken, knowing that to break through this, it would have had to, one, broken the entire day's market structure, and two, it would have had to break the point of control of this uptrend. And three, it would have to break the low volume node, the bullish support area of this low volume node to even get back down here. So as soon as this comes down and you see it come up a little bit, you can take this trade knowing that you have super good confluence. You can put your stop loss below that low volume node and you could try to target the next low volume node. So that's pretty much it. Again, guys, I have a Discord that you guys can join for free. Talk to me, study this volume analysis stuff. Go ahead and use this information to do trading view replays, seeing where you can, see the support and resistance. And use those retests as entry, and don't forget to confirm it with your long-term volume profile. Okay, again, I'm Grateful Futures. The link to my Discord is in the comments. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to see you guys out there. Happy trading.